Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of it. Up and down, can you feel it? Up and down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Johansson show. I am joined by wrestler and head booker of Fight Club Finland, Shemeikka. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Excited. Been a long time coming. When I spoke to Regina, she was just singing your praises and was like, this is somebody you need to get on if you want to talk about Finnish wrestling. And obviously I'd been doing this Scandi Grap series, which then turned into just a Nordic wrestling series. And yeah, it's good to have you on the show, talk about your career and what's it like to be the head booker of Fight Club Finland. So, like, how did you get started with Fight Club Finland to begin with?
Well, it was actually quite a strange case because I knew I'm from the north of Finland originally, and then I moved to Helsinki to work here, basically. And I knew back when I was much younger, I knew that there is wrestling in Finland, and I never thought of it more than that. Even though I used to watch wrestling like somewhere some time until I was like 20 or so, and then I just stopped for many years. And when I get to Helsinki, because I do videos as a living. I'm an editor and a director, and we have this group of friends that we like to do also videos with, like music videos and stuff. And we got Juhana Karhula, King Kong Karhula, one of the wrestlers here, who was playing a small part in one of our music videos. And he was like, oh, we have this wrestling company, and we would like you to make some hype videos for the upcoming Winter War 10, which was like the biggest show at that point. And we were like, yeah, sure. And I was, of course, really excited, like, oh, wrestling. Oh, I remember. I used to watch it and stuff like that. And it was the first meeting we had with Karhula, and he was like, oh, we also have tryouts coming. So if you have anyone interested in wrestling, just give them a heads up that there's a tryouts coming. And I said to Karhula, I could come there. I could do a tryout. And he was like, oh, well, yeah, or if you have any friends who want, because I'm not a huge guy, so I maybe wasn't a big sell for him at that point. But I went there and I stuck with it.
How did you find the tryouts? Because I'm always fascinated when I've spoken to, again, Regina or even someone like the Swedish guys, and when they're talking about the tryouts, it seems a lot more grueling. Here in the UK, basically, a lot of companies will just take the tuition fee and will take whoever, whereas it seems like a lot stricter of who they let in. So how did you find that?
I think the tryouts for us were actually quite good. They were not really like they did like cardio wise or strength wise. They weren't that hard, at least for me. I used to do jiu-jitsu and rugby and stuff like that. So they weren't special like that. But it was really advanced, the techniques we did in the 2 days, because usually you do pumps and maybe sends run the ropes during your tryouts, but we went all the way like to elbow drops and shoulder tackles and back elbows. And even today when I tell them that the guys before me who came to FCF before me and had the tryouts and guys after, like, why did you do stuff like that? That's not something you do in the first 2 days of wrestling. But I found it quite easy, and it was, of course, I didn't find the wrestling easy, but the tryouts weren't like you feel like shit from all the bumps, but otherwise it was like, oh, this is exciting, I want to do this, and I hope that I will get through the tryouts and they will pick me. And after the tryouts, they were like, yeah, everyone who was here, just come next Wednesday, we'll start the trainings.
After like day one and when you first start the training, then you mentioned the bumps, and obviously it takes its toll, especially when you're first starting. And how did you feel? Because here you are, you've watched wrestling in the past, you've kind of gone out of it, and then your introduction is to actually get into it, and it's a whole new beast. Like from when you're watching to actually taking the bumps, how did you feel physically?
The bumps are like first time, of course, you're like really this like every time pump because it hurts and of course you get used to it, but like every time you have a break, a month, a week, maybe 2 weeks even, it's gonna be a shock once again. And I'm afraid when we get back to the ring after the pandemic, it's gonna be horrible. Okay. The first few bumps, but then you get used to it once again. But yeah, the first thought was like, is there any way to make this easier? Because after every bump, it's gonna feel like this. But yeah, that's how it is.
No, definitely. How did Kahula think about it then when he's like, oh, if you know anybody, bring him down? And he seemed real pessimistic when he was like, I'll come down. And here you are now, head booker, and you've been with the company for many years.
Oh yeah, I let him hear about it every now and then. He wants, but I think he saw the most potential in me after that in the trainings, and he's been the guy who's really pushed me and always been like, oh yeah, we can go with this guy,
Yeah.
and believes in me. So I think he he's changed his mind.
So if you ever take the Finnish Heavyweight Championship, you can always just remind him, like, do you remember when I said I'd come and there's that bit of doubt in your eyes?
Oh yeah, and at this point, I'm the number one contender to Karhula's heavyweight championship. So I'm waiting for that. It's gonna be a big one when we finally get to do the match.
No, definitely. So obviously training's one thing, but then when you're getting in front of that live crowd, and what what was your first match like? What was that like in front of a paying audience as well?
Oh yeah, it was just at the middle of the show we did in the January 2017, and it was 8-person tag match. So uh, it's kind of safe spot to have as a debut match.
Yeah.
And there was all the guys from my what's the word, from my year of training.
Yeah.
Lots of words, but all the guys there, they have already debuted a month before that, and I was the only one doing it in that match, and I got a lot of attention because of that, even though it was eight-person tag. And yeah, I took a lot of heat and a lot of big moves from the older guys and also the new guys. But it was great. I think the match is still. I watched it just maybe a month, two back, and it's still a quite strong match. Of course, my work in it could be 1,000 times better, but still the match is like, wow, this is not bad match to debut in,
Yeah.
and the crowd was great. I can't remember anything about the match itself as how I saw it when I wrestled, because everything was just blur, and it went past. It felt like 2 minutes, but it was 12. So
So whilst you speak about like the crowd and stuff, like for those that may be listening that haven't witnessed Finnish wrestling, like what are the crowds like, and what can they expect to see if they check out Fight Club Finland?
the crowds are. I think our crowd has changed in the few years I've been wrestling.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. It used to be closer to like almost like Japanese, that people were cheering and clapping for the moves and the spots. Like it's just quite quiet, then a spot, yeah, whoa, whoa, and then quite quiet. But now it's changed. There's always people making some noise and chanting, of course. But nowadays it's more organic. It feels like there's always something some kind of sound and someone is doing something, and there because we of course we have our diehard fans as well, and they used to like kind of run the show for the crowd before, like they started, they tell the others how to act and so. But nowadays it feels like the new crowd that's found FCF during the last year or two, they bring their own vibe to the show, that they are living it their way, not waiting for the diehard fans to start stuff or so. That and it's actually quite great. And people who haven't watched it, I think we have quite a great product. There isn't the newer stuff available online, but I think there is. The newest one is the Winter War 14, which was 2019.
Okay.
Or the main event of that, but we also sold a few shows online, but they are not available at the moment. But our wrestling is really good. It's we are focusing on the storytelling or the drama of the matches.
Yeah.
We try to keep it like we are quite hands-on in the product with the whole company. Like even though the wrestlers have all the freedom they need, but we are still giving a lot of feedback, like telling this is what we want from the show, this is what we want from this match, this is what we want from you. And we are trying to get everyone to play as a team. We are not trying to be like this farm league, if that's the word, like AHL to the NHL and so on, or the NXT to Raw and SmackDown. We are trying to be that product, and we don't want to train and have people have matches just to get to the other promotions, like to get to the bigger promotions. We want them to be part of the FCF product, and if we bring someone in, or if we have a new wrestler come in, we know that he has a role, he or she has a role, and we want them to really nail that role. We don't want just to make another match to your CV to show to the other. We want you to make the best match for that show, for that spot, to really really to serve the whole show and the FCF, because I think that shows like everyone is doing their part. You might have this 1 minute squash match, but these guys are not like why this. We are getting you get to wrestle once in 2 months. Now you're not even getting that, and then you get booked a minute squash match. And of course, it's like, well, I would love to show all this stuff, but in FCF, that's not important. We don't need you to just go out there and sell your shirts. We need you to be the part of the FCF product.
Yeah, and so when it comes to maybe booking outside guests, then you mentioned you don't want them to be like, I've been to Finland, like, and putting that on the CV. I guess a bit like what Luke Sharp's done in the Scandinavian scene, especially with Denmark, with Copenhagen, where he's really become a mainstay of their roster, and he has the intentions of Danish wrestling and in heart, and that's what you guys would be looking for from an outsider, I guess, is somebody that isn't just here to, hey, I've wrestled in this country, or I've wrestled for this company. It's they want to be there and be part of the product and be part of like your mindset and trying to build you as a whole. Is that correct?
Yes, and of course we used to have it like that. That's just okay. We have 2 slots in every show, pretty much for someone to come, and maybe we book someone from Sweden or Denmark or Russia or so on. But nowadays it's changed actually so much that because our roster is just getting huge, that we can't book whoever we want as bookers. We need to get a clearance for every booking from the board. You can say that for each and every booking, and usually we have to like ask ourselves the questions: do we really need this person, and what is he or she bringing to the table? And nowadays, because we are trying to make the product more diverse, and that's why we can't, like, just to book another white guy to wrestle for us is pretty much impossible. We have white guys in our rosters, and if we want to bring people of color or different ethnicities, and of course female wrestlers or the other genders, that's easier. That's usually we have a reason to bring them, and of course we try to have the show, the all-female show, which would have had, like, I think some sort of record of talent outside of Finland coming, but that got cancelled. But it's easier to get those kind of shows through our board because it's all female. We need females to have the diversity in our wrestling that we're trying to produce.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it helps yourself as well, especially in the long run, of having quite a homegrown roster and talent base, because I know throughout this pandemic you've been able to run various shows, like spread apart depending on government guidelines, but you've not found that difficult because it isn't like half of our roster can't fly in.
Yeah,
Like, you've got a lot of your roster domestically based, so I guess that does help your product in terms of if there's a pandemic or just for the locality.
oh, most definitely, and it's actually we don't like. We still have, because we used to book the shows, showed that every wrestler could wrestle, but nowadays we have so much talent, and the quality is also so good that some guys just don't get to wrestle that often, simply because there's so many good guys, and we are not gonna pack it with battle royals and 4-on-4 tag teams. So people, it's like a good fight to get your spot on the card. But of course, we try to make as many shows as possible, and shows where we will actually take those wrestlers that don't get as much spots on the bigger shows and try to put them first in the card, and then we will fill it from the down up, or if you can say it like that. And but yeah, it's like that also drops the amount of outside talent we need.
Yeah. Well, that puts a lot of, I guess, responsibility for yourself. I know you mentioned any booking you have to get approved by like the board, the people running the ship, but yourself as head booker, like how did that come about to begin with?
Well, we have, because when the board changes every year, in our promotion, pro wrestling air Y, how do you say it? Anyway, then they choose the new bookers, or we call them script writers. Actually, we go by that, and or actually they choose the head booker, and the head booker chooses all the rest of the team. And I was part of the team for a few years, and then the last guy who was the head booker decided that he will just drop down to be just a line booker, if you can say that, and do the dirtier work. And I was just like, okay, maybe I will put in my application. Maybe they'll pick me, and they did. And this has been my first year as the head booker. They liked maybe they liked my application, maybe they liked the work I've done, maybe they knew that I got what it takes to be the script writer, really, who tries to get the stories in. And that's also because I've studied script writing a little, so maybe that gave me the edge.
Yeah. Talk about a tough year to have, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a great challenge. Of course, you get really frustrated because the stuff we wrote, it's not just me. We have a big team to write, but stuff we wrote to last year, we are still trying to like get them going. The stuff that was supposed to end last December or so, we're just okay, maybe we get this feud going in the next show. Oh, the next show is not happening once again. Okay. And we made a show in January, which was like an extra show, the one we only taped with the minimum crowd, and suddenly we are thinking like, are we going to like continue the stories in this show, or will this be just like an exhibition show?
Yeah.
But of course we need to continue the stories. Which stories we continue, and we got like 2 weeks to make these decisions, because like, oh yeah, we're gonna film this right now and we need the card, and it's like, what do we do? And it needs to be a mix. Like if we have a huge storyline going, we don't want it to end in a show like that, but we still need to keep it going, so we need to write something in between, but not make it boring. And it's been quite just reacting to stuff.
I bet. So from like some of your early years as a in-ring competitor, like what are some of your favorite moments and some of your favorite opponents, especially in like those first like 2 or 3 years?
My favorite opponent has to be Victor Tykki, who I started to feud pretty much right out of the gate. It was back then, it was impossible to have a feud like before you wrestled like three years or so. But I don't know why we had this pretty much this Kevin Steen El Generico vibe going, and people just sort of like, this is so easy story to make a feud out of it, and our chemistry was just amazing.
Yeah.
Like the guys who wrestled their first year, and because Tykki was or is just amazingly good worker, pretty much, and his movement and striking and everything was and is like really top notch. I wasn't like that, but I understood how to create a match, how to get people invested, and when you combine those two, and it's perfect match for a great match. And we got like 3 matches in our feud, and they were, or pretty much every match we had was nominated as a match of the year, and we won all the match of the years. And it was supposed to be 3-match feud, and suddenly we are the bookers are like, we want you to do an I Quit match in the biggest event. And it was crazy because there was an Iron Man match as a main event for the title.
Oh, wow.
And we were supposed to be doing the I Quit match as to end the first half of the show. And the head booker came to me, and he thought that, okay, we are going to move you to the just before the main event. And then he said, I should move you to main event, but I can't do it because it's just way too big thing to do. But he was like, yeah, I think it's gonna be that way, that you should be the main eventing, even though there's a title match, Iron Man match. And after the show, the head booker also said that, yeah, you should have been the main event, and it was huge. It's one of my favorite moments doing I Quit match with Tykki in the biggest event of the year, the Winter War we have. And yeah, that's also, and of course after that I had the storyline where I lost my mask, and so it was FCF versus the evil stable or evil faction, the Black Hole. And once again, I kind of snuck in to that storyline, and even though there was an FCF champion there in the storyline, and of course it was, in the end, it was supposed to die, or it was FCF versus the Black Hole, but it kind of became the story of Shemeikka, and it was huge feud. It lasted the whole year. It was the Black Hole taking over the whole show, and quite like in NWO, but a little bit of magic in it. And people loved it, and it ended in a huge 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match, and it was a challenge, of course. It's to create that match as well. It's not an easy to write something over 40 minutes or try to, but I think we managed, and it's one of the greatest. I think it's the best Survivor Series match out there, but of course it's my opinion. I was in it, so let's take it with a bit of salt.
Is that online for anybody to see?
Not yet. I hope that I heard they are trying to make that show, or trying to edit and cut it to the YouTube. But it's FCF video is quite infamous for the for the speed of the edits, and like we just released the Talvisota 13, the Winter War 13, which had with the I Quit match I just talked about, and it was 2018. So wow. And the where we had the Survivor Series match, the Omega, was 2019. So it's only been 2 years. So maybe this year, next year they get it online. It can be any moment.
No, fingers crossed. What was the story like? How was the story told for you to be losing your mask then? And how did you feel about that? Because a mask it can be somebody's crutch for confidence and stuff like that. And a lot of people say when they first lose the mask, they feel a bit naked and not sure about their identity. So how did you find wrestling under the mask? And then what was the story to take that mask from you?
It was actually like wrestling with the mask was quite a relief, simply because I didn't have a gimmick, or pretty much I just put on the mask and go there and do stuff, and it was quite a relief to get it, and it got over. There wasn't anyone else, well not a face wrestler at least, with the mask, so it got over pretty fast. And then we just had the spot in one of our matches with Victor Tykki where he took my mask away in the end after the match, and it got a lot of heat, of course. And we didn't think much of it. It was just a part of storyline. I got the mask back and so on. But in that I Quit match, I just wanted to do let's make it special. In the end, I will lose my mask and actually wrestle through it, like wrestle without the mask for the last few minutes. And just because we have just shown that if you take the mask away, Shemeikka will run. But in that match, I didn't, and I actually got like a beast mode when they removed the mask. And we have in FCF we have this guy who trains us, he's an actor, and he gives us lessons and tries to spar with the ideas we have for the mask, or the matches, not the mask, but the matches. And he said to me I have this idea for this match, that what if you come out of it not as you will still be a face, but not a baby face anymore. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'm listening. And then I told him that I was thinking about this part where I lose the mask, and so on. He was just like, oh, now we have it. Okay, so you're gonna go the dark side. Whenever you remove the mask, it's gonna be like this beast mode, a crazy maniac Shemeikka unleashing. And it sounded like, okay, this might not work. And of course, he told me that there's no going back after this. You're not going to be like happy babyface. We need to give you a story about the mask. So we went with it, and we got just the reaction we wanted from the crowd, which I was super surprised. Like, people were not sure, even though I win the I Quit match, but there was I attacked the opponent after the match, and And before that, I was super babyface. So people didn't know how to react. Like, should we boo? Or they were chanting after the match, like a few minutes after the match, like, "Oh, this is great match." But they didn't know, should they cheer? They were actually cheering for the opponent after the, and then we continue with that. Like, people tried to remove the mask in the matches, and I was running away and don't touch my mask, and then we come to that Survivor Series match I talked about, and then it was like Shemeikka versus two guys in the end, and there's no way he can win, but then he himself removes the mask, gets a beast mode, gets the win, but after that, like, pretty much collapses, dies in the end, and the FCF roster comes out, carries the guy Shemeikka to the back, and that was the end of the season for us. So it was like a huge cliffhanger. What's going to happen? And we have like these off-season shows during the summer where I was like, okay, now I probably wrestle without the mask. And I felt quite naked, and I wasn't sure about myself. Like, I don't look like a wrestler at all, because nothing had happened. I still had like no gimmick. If you ask me now, what's your gimmick? I'm like, I'm like this
What's
wrestler.
your gimmick?
Yeah, I just still don't know. And I felt like, okay, this was a mistake. I shouldn't have lost the mask, because my gimmick was pretty much the guy with the mask.
Yeah.
But at that point, I think I got good enough to like keep the crowd interested and going, even without like having an actual good gimmick that you can tell. And that's always been my weakness. Like, people ask, what's your gimmick, or even when someone is telling someone else about Shemeikka, like, what is he can't they can't just say like 2 words or 2 phrases. They have to like, oh, it's the guy who did this, and it's not the optimal thing to have for a wrestler. Of course, if I'd like to get booked outside, it's always, what's your gimmick? Well, my gimmick is this. I used to have a mask. Is that a gimmick enough for you? But yeah, that's how I lost it, but after that, it made me a better wrestler as well, because I couldn't hide behind the mask anymore. So
no, I understand, and especially in terms of the story itself, kind of writes your gimmick for Fight Club Finland, because the fans have been there on the journey and they've seen the slow build and then the ending, and that's why. And then how you're wrestling and how you are now, they know, oh, well, it's because this happened, and this happened. But to a complete stranger or for a new company, it is hard to be like, well, I did, because it wouldn't transfer over. So, and that puts us to Freedom Pro Wrestling, like, because I know you wear the mask there, and you've been in Triple Threat involving Endakara, you've faced Carlos Zamora there. What's it been like putting the mask back on for Sweden and wrestling over there?
I think it's actually, it now feels like I'm doing something dirty and secret when I put on the mask. Like, but I love it. It gives me a different kind of freedom, or like a Freedom Pro, but different kind of freedom to have the mask now. That I know that I don't need it.
Yeah.
But now I can pretty much work with the mask. And it's been, once again, it's a new crowd, so it's easier for the new crowd to get behind the guy with the mask. There's a little bit of unknown. It doesn't look like the guy you work with. It looks like, or if you work with the guy with the leather mask, then it might look like a guy you work with, but otherwise, so it's an easier task, and it nowadays it feels in freedom, because they've gave me a pretty important matches, like with Carlos and the main event, and you really need like all the help you can get, and the mask gives that, just makes me a little bit more interesting for the crowd.
Have you found any differences between the crowds from Finland to Sweden?
Oh yeah, I think I also worked for the Stockholm Wrestling, and actually the crowd between Stockholm wrestling and Freedom Pro Wrestling is also quite a different. And the crowds aren't that huge in Freedom, but they like to get entertained. They are quite hard to like get started. It was pretty much the opener with me and Zamora, and we needed to really work with the crowd first, like get it started, and because it's a smaller crowd, you can't just, if you have a big crowd, you need to get some of them going, and it will ripple to the other persons there, and they will make some noise. But now you really had to point at the guys in the front row, like, hey, get your hands up, do stuff, and but that's the way I like it. I like the little challenge. In Stockholm wrestling, I worked as a heel, so it was completely different, but it had a great crowd. They were really giving the heat and giving the love when needed, and quite easy actually. And of course, it's quite the same in Finland than with Stockholm and Freedom. That some crowds are tough in Finland as well. But I've heard that the other crowds, like in Gothenburg, they are like super. I don't want to say easy because it sounds that they are cheap or something, but you know that they make the sounds and they just live through the whole show. But yeah, the Freedom crowd, when it gets going, it's really great. That even though it's a small crowd, it's always like, I can see from their faces. That's the best thing you get from wrestling. Is like they're like, okay, some friend of a friend got me here to watch wrestling on a Saturday night, and they're like, I just want to drink beer. And when you and you tell that guy to clap your hand, raise your hand, say something, and he's like, I'm not gonna say anything to that guy with the mask. And after the match, you see him or her cheering, and you can see at least their expression changed. Like, wow, this is not that bad at all. That's the best thing you can get from wrestling. You made someone's night there.
100%. So what would you say is your favorite match of yours from Freedom and from Stockholm?
Well, actually, Stockholm, I only had one match, so it must be against the Wild Boy, and I think it's only match. Yeah, it's like one of the few matches, but only match where I worked heel in front of a larger crowd, and it was I really loved it. It's as a super baby face, it's great to have one to play an angry Finn coming to invade the Stockholm, and it was really fun night and a fun match. And in Freedom, there's so many. We had quite a strange match with Stanislav. It was a hardcore match. We did all the goofiest stuff we could have done. I think there's not even a video of that match, but it was just crazy. But then I'd say it's the Carlos Zamora match was he was such a professional. He was a really good wrestler, and I think he can do some big things in the business. And I would love to book him in FCF one day, because he can really go, and I think to me the most important thing is, even though you can pull a great match with someone, but if I get the vibe that this person understands wrestling, he's someone I can bring in and do whatever I need him to do. And that's the biggest thing I can get out of the guys. And I think Carlos was one of those who really understand that what we're here to do. So it was just, I really loved working with him.
No, he really is great. And is there anybody across the Nordic wrestling scene that you've not faced, that whether it's from Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, that you really want to get in the ring with?
Oh, I actually teamed up with Timmy Force in my early years, but I've never wrestled against him, and I don't know if he even wrestles anymore. But he really got the business, and he's super talented as well. I always want to wrestle him, but some of the more interesting ones have been Marcus of Man of Stockholm Wrestling. I think he has a great eye for the business as well. And of course, Freedom has guys like, I've already faced Weekend and stuff, but and then Alice Inc. I think she, pretty much because she's just so over that I would get some points just to be in the ring with her. and then there's in Norway there I can't remember his name. But it just escaped my mind, so I won't say. I won't even try. But of course, in Denmark, in Bodyslam, Emeritus, he has at least the gimmick is spot on, and I watched some of his work, and he seems really someone who would fit my style. As well as Michael Finn, he was in one of our events, and he was just. He was just so super. I think I could learn so much from him, and also I've actually followed Body Slam a lot, and there is so much interesting stuff they're doing, and I really like their product. So guys from there would be amazing. And then there's like the legend from Sweden. I'm really always been quite a fan of Harley Rage. And then also there are some I met some of the Copenhagen Pro Wrestling guys in Freedom, and they seemed nice. Like Pete Phoenix was a really great guy, and I'd really like to do something with him as well. There's quite a few, but at the moment they're just distant. They feel quite distant because of the pandemic, and I'm traveling soon, so.
I can imagine. I always put it across to people as well, where obviously Nordic wrestling doesn't get the eyes that it should deserve, especially away and across Europe, and that's kind of been what this whole series has been about, is try and promote different companies and a lot of the different talent, and it's seen some maybe get bookings or different interview requests off the back of it. But one thing that I'd love to see is, whether it was on Fight or somebody's network or somebody like that, is like a big Nordic super show where it could be Fight Club Finland match, a Stockholm match, a Body Slam match, but then you could have some where you're representing against each other and stuff like that, just to showcase like just how great all these companies are and all, like the talent pool that is out there. So again, head booker, what match would you want to see if it was one wrestler from your roster? And well, you seem a fan of Body Slam, and it was what match would you book where it was Body Slam versus Fight Club Finland?
Oh, I would go with if I would really want to make like the super match, I'd really want to see. I would go with Michael Finn and Juhana Karhula. I think that would be like that would really be a match that would like put the whole scene on the map, because that would be like a WWE level match, and it would wipe all the AEW and NXT UK stuff.
You're not a fan of AEW?
Oh, I wouldn't call myself a fan. I really love that they are doing what they're doing. But I of course I bought the Fight TV and watched that when they started and stuff. But it's not the kind of wrestling I'm into. I just had to drop it at some point, because I really want to know what they're telling the stories, and when they do good stuff, it's really good stuff. But the normal stuff they put in the Dynamite. When I watch wrestling show, which I rarely do nowadays, just watch anything weekly, and when I put on Dynamite and the first match is 20 minutes of some tag team match, and I'm sick of wrestling after that match. I don't want to watch any more wrestling that week, because it's just too much. And I don't think their shows is the structure of the show is quite poor there, because you exhaust the viewer with the first match, and then you have pretty much the identical match right after that. And they are doing way too long matches for TV and have way too little to tell. That's how I felt, and that's why I dropped watching the Dynamite. But I still watch, try to keep up what they're doing, because their stories feel fresh, and that's important. And I love the stuff that Cody and Dustin been doing there, and it's kind of sad that when you watch AEW, you realize how good the guys that were in WWE were, because they can they tell the matches and the stories way better than the guys who come from the indies or from even from Japan. And it's because but it's great to have that like a mix there, and it might bring us something great when it evolves a little bit more. But yeah, they really need the guys like Jericho and Moxley there to like keep it tight, and Cody, because the I don't think the rest of the roster quite are capable of keeping the stuff up. If you love just to watch wrestling, like, then it's for you, just because it has a lot of wrestling, but wrestling needs more than just the in-ring action. It needs so much more to at least survive in the information world we have nowadays, because there's so much stuff to watch, and if no one is going to watch 3 hours of pure wrestling straight.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, one of my friends, he became he fell out of love with wrestling when Punk left wrestling. He stopped really watching it. He'd watch the occasional thing, and recently he just got back in. He was like, "Hey, what's been good on WWE?" So for the past few years, I'd be able to tell him, right, this happened in the past few years. You should go check this out, and then explain with AEW. But when I've been getting him the pay-per-views to watch for AEW, I'm like, right, skip to this, skip to this, skip to this.
Yeah,
and it's especially on the early days. I think the pay-per-views are a lot stronger now. But on one of them, he didn't skip, and I think it was like Fight Fest or Fight for the Fallen before Dynamite had started, and he just got bored again. I was like, that's why you need to listen and just skip to the matches. I said,
and I need to add that I don't actually follow WWE at the moment at all, because they are quite bad the other way. Their stories are just horrible, and they are not interesting at all. And the shows, who wants to watch 3 hours of Raw? It's ridiculous. You can't just. It's torture, and they are. It's so poor show that there's nothing to offer there. So AEW is more interesting, and they have places they can go. I think WWE is stuck with their product, and of course they're happy with it. I don't think they have any problem with it, and it's okay, because they're making money there. They're really making money. They couldn't care less about if there should be something a fan like me wants, but they have their own league, of course, and AEW is not even close to that and won't be. But that's why AEW is more interesting. But one of the shows I've enjoyed in the past few years, it's been Lucha Underground. I think they had
amazing.
Yeah, they had because you really couldn't tell what's going to happen, and I don't care at all that they are taped and they redo the spots. It's been controversial to some, but it doesn't matter. You can't see it. You can see what they give you, the hour of great entertainment, and also the NWA Power. It felt so fresh, and I always tell the story that what's the difference between, AEW had in their, when they were building, I think it was Hangman Page versus someone for the title.
Jericho.
Yeah, in the beginning, and they were building Hangman Page to be like this super number one contender, and what they had him to do was 20-minute match against, I think it was Kip Sabian or something.
Yeah.
And that's where when you forget the storytelling of the wrestling, because they had this 20 minutes, indie style match where it was quite even, and after the match you think like, okay, this is the number one contender, but he barely won this guy with green trunks. I don't even know who he is. And NWA Power did the same with James Storm. James Storm has a match against someone, and he just super kicks the guy and pins him. You tell the same story, and the James Storm feels like, oh wow, I really want this guy to face the champion, and so that's the simple storytelling you're doing. That's where I think sometimes the fans also get in the way of the real art of wrestling, because the matches itself need to tell the story of what are these guys going to do, where they're coming from. It's a match where you tell the story. You don't tell the story only in promos or in vignettes or something. You tell the story in the match, and if your story is trying to be that Hangman Page is challenging the champion, he should feel like someone who can win the champion, and not like every match is a struggle for him to get through.
Yeah, I think it's just because they want to be able to put on those great 20-minute matches and make everybody look strong. And it's great wanting to make everybody look strong, but again, it did weaken Hangman straight from the get-go. Especially, it'd have been, if they did it where Hangman later to the build was frustrated that he struggled to get past Kip Sabian, but because he became number one contender from Battle Royal, so that's all well and good, but singles matches are different. So if they were like, they wanted to put this 20-minute showcase on for Kip Sabian to look strong, but then have Hangman frustrated that he couldn't get past Kip so easily.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be the way to tell it. But when I think somebody said it with Omega recently, and it was a good match, but Omega supposed to be best in the world, but then a lot of his matches are going 10, 15, 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where trying to have everybody on the top level kind of brings the top level down.
Yeah, that's true. Because everyone needs to have a role in there, and it doesn't have to go like okay, this guy needs to jump all the time or so, but when you have that match, you can have, like you said, you can have Adam Page against Kip Sabian 20 minutes, even though Adam Page is the number one contender. But there needs to be a reason why that's happening.
Yeah,
and of course, if Kenny Omega now starts to squash guys, there needs to be a reason for that. It needs to be a part of the story why we're doing this, and not just giving every match 20 minutes is ridiculous, because you're taking like every minute you give to a match before main event is taking away from main event. You need to you try to, because main event is still and will always be the match you should have that sells the show. Yeah. So you need to give as much minutes to the matches before and make them so different from each other, but to still have them to be, all the matches can be 5-star matches. That's not the point. Yeah. But that they are different. They have the story so that they build towards the main event, and the main event still feels like, oh, these guys are really doing a main event. It feels like the biggest show, biggest match in the show. And like in WWE, they always do the same with okay, we're gonna have a promo now, and this turns out to be the main event, and it gets old so fast. Oh, it got old like what, 15 years ago, so it will still be the same, and it's just horrible. And I understand they need to do a TV show, they need to, all the new viewers coming in need to get focused, and but it's ridiculous. It's just it's just boring structure there as well. So I think what our indie shows are should be happy about is that we don't get to make 2-3 hour shows every week, because we really can focus on what we're doing with our hour every week or 3 hours every month we get.
Yeah. No, 100%. So going back to yourself and like speaking of like the main event and things like that, you've lost the mask, and now you mentioned number one contender for Kahula's championship. How we got to that point? I know you had a few matches with Valentine, but how did you become number one contender, and what are some of your favorite matches since losing that mask?
We first started with that storyline that Shemeikka doesn't know what he wants, and he tried tag teaming, and it didn't work out, even though the tag team was successful. But it like, this is not what I'm supposed to do. I need to do something bigger. It was like this kind of story of our script writing, because we had just had the huge story with the black hole invading, and we were quite like, what's next? We need to do some sort of like calm down, not to have another huge storyline, maybe have smaller ones, and so it kind of got into Shemeikka like being like, I don't know what I'm doing. There is not a huge villain to conquer, so what's Shemeikka doing? And he bounced around, didn't know what to do. And then it turned, Karhula did a heel turn and became the new evil authority in FCF. And because Shemeikka and Karhula used to be like a team trying to vanquish the evil doers in FCF, so it became like, now Shemeikka had a target once again, like, okay, I'm gonna take out Karhula, then who became it's the two-faced story from the Batman, like you either die as a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And Karhula became the villain, and then Shemeikka started to get always was asking for, maybe I should be facing the champion now, and Karhula was always like, you're not ready, you shouldn't be doing that. And then we got to the part where Karhula tried to get rid of Shemeikka with Valentine, and those were some of my favorite matches last year. I faced Valentine for the first time, I think it was February or something, and I had never worked with him before, and it was, even though he's from Finland, he didn't live here, and I met him, like, we talked about the matches just before the show, and I was super nervous, and like, oh my god, I'm really facing Valentine. It was like the best from the Nordics, and I didn't perform well, but he performed so well that it looked like I performed well. Like, I felt like shit during and after the match, but it was great. And then we got like, okay, now you're gonna have a loser leaves town match between Valentine and Shemeikka, and we had the 7 months off because of the first quarantines here, and I was like, okay, now I haven't wrestled for 7 months, or I've wrestled a little, and I'm going to go main event again, and we need to top the match we had in February, and I was super nervous. Like, can I do this? I didn't think I was in the shape to wrestle, like, but I was actually, after that I realized I was in a better shape than I was before the pandemic. But anyway, the match was amazing. I think that's the best match of my career, was the rematch against Valentine, and at that point I really finally realized that I can pull off main events, and I'm there where I deserve to be there. It's because I'm always I'm not a very sure person about myself and what I do, about anything I do, and wrestling has been a huge part of it, because you can't like measure wrestling. Because if I do a long jump, I can say how good I I measure against the others, but in wrestling it's impossible, because there is no there, it's just because it's all how are your friends with the people around you and stuff. So I always, even though I had done many main events before the match against Valentine, I always doubted I'm a like what's the word, I shouldn't be here, I'm a fraud. Yeah, the fraud is the word. I'm just, I'm here by accident, and I hope nobody notices that. But after the Valentine match, I like, okay, I pulled that off. That felt great, and the outcome was great, and people loved it. And I think I was it Shawn Michaels who said, I don't remember who said, but you don't need to ask after your match that was it a good or bad. You know it. You were there. Yeah. And after that match, I knew that, oh my God, that was great. And I never feel like that, because I'm always just doubting myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm shit and can't do anything. And after that, I was like, okay, I can wrestle. It's been what? Almost 4.5 years at that point. I was like, okay, now I can wrestle, I can go. And it was a great feeling. And after that, we had the Rumble match, and there I got the #1 contendership for the next Winter War that was supposed to be last December, but now it's postponed.
Amazing. Am I right in thinking your last match was with Jessica Love?
Oh yeah. It was. I had the pleasure to work with Jessica in many tag team matches when she was still a face, and she was actually in my debut match, and it was great to have a superstar like that in a match. And this was the first time we met against each other, and people don't talk about her enough. She's the biggest thing out of Finland when you think about pro wrestling. She's faced like Ultimo Dragon and I think Asuka, if I'm not incorrect with that. She is just amazing, and it was great to work with her. And in the main event, and of course, that match also was important to me, because the last singles main event was against Valentine, the match I just talked about, and now it had been a few months, and there was a Rumble, of course. But then I'm once again doubting myself that, okay, now is the singles match against a wrestler like Jessica, and can I pull this off? And I think it went really well, and it was harder because there wasn't a crowd there, and in that show, and to do a main event where you can't actually feel the electricity around you, it was strange, but we made it work, and I think it was really good stuff, and I think, and I hope I'll meet her in a ring again soon, and we will top that match.
How would it feel for you to become champion?
It's something I've dreamed of, and as a booker, of course there is so much stuff going on when you think about the championship, because for a booker they don't feel the same. Yeah, because they are not just like, they are not a reward for a guy who gets it. They are like, okay, now we're gonna go with you, and we really trust you, and you are one of the best here, or the best, and because I see the belt as something that gives pressure to a person, like, okay, you really need to do something right now. It doesn't. It's when the work starts, is when you get the belt. Then you really need to be the best. And when I started, my goal was to have one wrestling match, and after that, it was to have another match, and so on. I never dreamed about getting any bookings outside of Finland. I never dreamed of having a main event in Finland, because they felt so distant. And now when I finally have the match against Karhula someday, the pressure is, of course, it's just huge to deliver something with that, and the belt is closer than it's ever been, and of course you need to think that is that something I can do. And when you are part of the booking team, and if the belt is on someone who is on the booking team, it's once again like, should we even go with this? Are we need to be self-monitoring all the time like we have. But I would love to win the title. I also, at one point I was booked, I'm not gonna tell which promotion, but for one promotion in Sweden I was supposed to face one of their champions, and that felt huge. Like I said, even though I'm a booker and I have a whole different view on the belts and championship, but I was booked for one title match in Sweden, and it was such an honor. It never happened because of the pandemic, but I was like, I still can, as a wrestler, I feel the belts, I feel the championship, like, oh my God, do they trust me this much? And in FCF, it's strange to be the one that should trust myself. And like, should I trust myself that much? Maybe one day, maybe never, but you never know. It's still a goal, of course. It's a goal, and because now it wasn't a goal before, but now when it's so close, it becomes a goal. And when you doubt yourself and when you feel like a fraud after every match, the questions with the belt become quite difficult to answer.
So, what are your goals left in wrestling? Like, what is it you're wanting to achieve?
I don't, as a wrestler, I'm just happy to be able to wrestle. But my goals are in Finland and in the wrestling scene. I'm training the new wrestlers, and I'm lecturing them about wrestling and the booking, and trying to make the FCF, the product, the people around it better, to keep it going. The biggest thing we are doing in FCF is trying to have it so that when the 5 to 10 guys that are now doing the work, most of the work, when they stop, because you never know when that is, that there is always someone coming to fill that spot. Because now we feel like we don't have a ceiling. We can go and make the product better and better every day, but it's no use how great we can make it if it won't last. If when we are gone, that there is no one to continue with, and it drops down, the quality drops down again. So that's why I'm trying to train better wrestlers, trying to train better bookers, trying to train people to make the better products, the commentators, the people who make the videos, and everything around, trying to make the Finnish scene better, and of course more inclusive, to have include everyone who wants in, or who doesn't even know that they want in, because when the scene is good and healthy, it will start to get people in itself. Like, people see that, oh, they are having good time, they're having fun, and they're making something amazing, and that's my goal. Myself, if someone like in Sweden, and hopefully some other countries too, if they want me to come there and wrestle, I'm more than pleased, because I learn something I can bring with me back to Finland and teach to others. But I'm not marketing myself at all. Maybe I should do some of that, because that's also always experience I can bring back. But my career, it's not that important. The important thing is the Finnish scene. I wanna keep healthy and see it thrive in the future.
Oh, amazing. But no, good luck with obviously the championship shot whenever that happens.
Whenever that happens, yeah.
Yeah, whenever that happens, like longest build to getting your title match, I guess. But no, it's great to see that again. Everybody that I speak to just really does have the Finnish wrestling scene at heart, and no matter what they do, Regina spoke very similar to it, where no matter what she does, she wants to be able to take it back to the Finnish scene, and that's great to see. And where can people find Fight Club Finland across social media? And if they wanted to check the shows out online, where can they find them?
Oh, of course, check out the YouTube FCF Wrestling. You can find a lot of stuff there, old stuff, hopefully new stuff every now and then. And we have a quite active Facebook where we post stuff, and Instagram at FCF Wrestling. Also, I think Snapchat and stuff like Reddit, but the most active are Instagram and Facebook. But be sure to follow the YouTube. And of course, my own YouTube. There's some matches coming, and my own Instagram as well.
And where can they find that?
Oh, that's Shemeikka FCF. FCF on Instagram and on YouTube. There's some wrestling trainings there, and some stories about trips to freedom. They're mostly in Finnish, but I started to write some subtitles there, so maybe someone will find something interesting to watch at some point.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Shemeikka, thank you for coming on the show. It's been great speaking about your career and just like your insight in show structuring and the responsibilities of being a booker. So, again, thank you. And hopefully, once that match with Kula happens and if you become champion, we'll have to get you on the show and talk about that as well.
Oh, definitely. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Everybody, do make sure you go follow FCF on social media and Shemeikka. Make sure you hit like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.